Hi, this is Gladsley Miller, and you're listening to the Learn, Apply, Repeat podcast. Welcome to the first episode of Learn, Apply, Repeat. My name is Gladsley, and today I'm gonna talk a little about my story so you get to know me and what are my plans for this podcast. So the first thing that I want to say is that I was born in Brazil, and early on I struggled a bit with some subjects at school, one of them being English. But as soon as I realized how to understand the grammar, I started to teach a lot of my friends. So teaching, this pleasure of learning something new and teaching was something that hit me early on. Even after school, when I finished my high school, I became an English teacher. And that allowed me to improve my English still while I was in Brazil. And it got me towards biology, which was one of the subjects that I really liked at school because it was really cool and I liked to teach as well. So that's when I got into university. And when I started to study biology, I found out there was one of the programs was to engage with public schools. So kids from public schools, they would go to the university and we would have like a huge auditorium where we could run experiments with them and teach biology. So this was early on in my early 20s. And after I completed my undergraduation, I started my master's in science teaching. Again, I studied plants during my undergraduation, and then I changed again to do more things related to teaching itself, how to teach biology concepts, but more than that, how to teach teachers how to teach these concepts. And during university, one of the things that I did is I got into tech. So I became, while I was studying, I got an internship inside the IT department, and that's when I got into programming languages. And one of the softwares that I got really into and I loved playing around was Flash. Flash was big in the early 2000s because you could do a lot of things. You could do games, websites. This was before Steve Jobs killed everything with the iPhone. But my main reason to use Flash and learning programming languages, which was like in that time, it was ActionScript. It was to build games, educational games to teach biology. But to do that, I had to learn Flash. And to learn Flash, I created a blog. It was called Aprendendo Flash, which means learning Flash. So everything that I was learning, I was applying by teaching other people. That was the very first time that I started making these recordings. And I believe I still have some early recordings and they were terrible. But one day maybe I'll re-release some of them. Luckily, I uploaded to some platforms before YouTube or similar to YouTube that they just died. I also created a blog when I was teaching. I was releasing content for science teachers in Brazil. The blog was called Eu, Professor, which means me, a teacher. So it was my learnings while I was doing my master's in science teaching, and I wanted to give as much content for science teachers in Brazil. A lot of things happened in my life, and I ended up going to UK with my wife. And in this move, I talked to my wife and I decided to change career. She actually suggested, she's like, you like teaching, but you're going to this Flash path. Why don't you try and get a job where you can learn more about Flash and maybe build some games? And that led me to my first job in UK, in London, which was as a web developer. I did work with some Flash websites, but as I said, Steve Jobs killed everything, so I just had to learn how websites were built in general. In that experience in the agency that I worked at in London, I also made my second career move. The first one was from biologist to becoming a web developer. And for about 6 months, I worked as a project manager. There was this need in the company, and that's when I learned a lot about agile methodologies, and I had to teach everyone, prepare some talks, prepare seminars. And I really liked how everything got organized, and I had to teach everyone. So again, another example of my life of learning something that had to be applied pretty quickly, and I ended up teaching. And in another move later on in the same agency, we discussed creating a branch of the company that was mainly for educational purposes, creating courses to teach how to do web development. And another realm that we were trying to do was related to Internet of Things, how we could create some amazing marketing tools using Internet of Things as well. So for about 6 months as well, I created courses. I actually gave a full, I can't remember now exactly the length, but it was like 3 to 6 months of web development course to a lot of people in there. And yet again, life changes and I had to go back. I decided to go back to Brazil. And in that move, I opened my own web agency and I kept some clients in UK. And at the same time, I started to mentor some young people as new engineers. Everything that I've learned in my experience as a web developer in UK, I was teaching young minds how to do that and avoid the pains that I had to go through. Later on, I got a new client that required me to be more of a software engineer / product manager. Being a product manager was a step up out of my comfort zone. That was software engineer, web development, and even project management. And then I took this opportunity as well to learn more about the business and more about design. And since then, I started to coach businesses, minor things that I started to learn with my experience. And move forward a bit more, life changed. I moved to Canada and nowadays I'm coaching public speaking and leadership skills to individuals and small businesses as well, and businesses in general. And in conversations with clients and with friends, they kept saying, oh, you should create a podcast because everything that I'm asking you, I know you've already taught other people. Maybe you can talk about these issues with guests or something. And that's how this idea came about. I'm not gonna say that I hadn't thought about it before, but now I'm having a really big push from peers and from mentees. So this is me taking a step into an uncomfortable zone, and I'm quite used to this, and I keep telling everyone that I coach that we should push to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, and this is me teaching by example. And what I have in mind for this podcast as of now is I want to share, there will be some solo episodes where I will explain some of my own personal stories of things that I've learned. I will probably go deep into some of these minor stories that I was just relaying today. But I do have a long list of guests, clients and friends, people that I know, and people that are my mentors without knowing, people that I really love their work. I want to invite them in here to share their own experiences in different industries and to share their stories so we can learn from them and hopefully apply in our daily lives, either at work or our side job. And I'm also pondering if I should do some live episodes. So these are the things that I have in my mind right now. And to just complete this initial episode, I would like to thank you all for listening to me, getting to know me a bit today. And I would love to have feedback and, if possible, subscribe to this podcast. So these will be some of the signals that I will use as a guidance to keep improving and bringing subjects that are relatable and of value to you. Thank you, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.